In marketing, we love to say that we listen to our customers and we take on their advice. But what about if you actually took that a step further and trusted your customers to build information, to become trusted sources of data, of advice, of activities that other customers could use in their everyday lives? How would that change the way you do your job? Hello, welcome to the CMO Show. We are a podcast that has been around for 10 years, produced by Impact Institute in partnership with our friends at Adobe. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We do a lot of B2B conversations. This time, it's B2C, and we're going back to the OG of fitness apps. It's MyFitnessPal. Perhaps you use it. They're in 120 countries around the world. It's quite remarkably loved by millions of people. And I say remarkably because the reviews are many and very high. It rates really, really well. And there's something to learn from their story about how you build and sustain a community over a period of time. In fact, 20 years in that case. So I have with me Marnie Boyer, who is the CMO of MyFitnessPal, and she tells a bit of her story. She also talks about how the app works. So there's lots of insights there in how to, build a product that's sustainable and grows over time. Also of interest is how she thinks about communities, about working with influencers, and then using the data that you collect in those spaces to inform not just product development, but also your go-to-market and the way that you continue to build out the organization over time. It's a really fascinating story, so let's get stuck into it. Well, thanks for joining us on the CMO Show. My guest today is Marnie Boyer. She is CMO at MyFitnessPal. Marnie, thanks for joining us from the States. It's great to have you with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Now, for those of us who don't know what MyFitnessPal is, I'd love a quick top-level summary.
Sure. Well, MyFitnessPal is actually the original fitness tracking app. We allow our customers to track everything from their nutrition to how much they're working out, their sleep. We're used to track your macros, to track against your goals. So it's an iPhone and an Android app. We even have a website where people can use that to track against any kind of goal that they have. It could be losing weight, gaining muscle, getting back into shape, trying to just walk that first couple of miles. So we have a lot of on-scale victories as well as non-scale victories that we help support our customers reach.
So good. Now, when you say original, what do you mean by that?
We started actually 20 years ago. We had just had our 20th anniversary, and we were started by a man who was getting married, and he and his fiance wanted to figure out how to lose a few pounds for the wedding. And they said, there's no real easy way to do this. There's a lot of putting it in notebooks and journals and things like that. Wouldn't it be great if there was a website that allowed people to do that? And he started that website 20 years ago and was actually one of the very first apps on the Apple Store. So that's why I say the original, because we really invented the category.
Look, that's quite remarkable. I think if I'm not mistaken, you came out before there was the phrase, there's an app for that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we really continue to evolve along with all the different apps in the store. So we're original, but also really innovative and trying to stay on top of all the latest technology.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think. I think probably more than one listener might be having their mind blown just to think that there's apps that have been around for 20 years. I'm interested in your story because coming into an organization from a whole bunch of different backgrounds and experiences, I'm interested to know what's been in it for you. What's the driving appeal as a CMO?
Yeah, I mean, what I really love about being a CMO is that I love being a consumer. I love shopping and buying things, and then that has really stimulated my interest in understanding why other people do what they do, why they buy what they buy. So I've always been in consumer businesses. When I was at AT&T, I was in their consumer business. I've been at Grubhub, at Capital One. We have credit cards in the US. So I just love to be part of people's deeply personal decision making and try to understand how you can influence that through marketing.
The interesting moment that we're in right now with a move towards AI, of course, is big question marks about the future of apps and how we use them and how they evolve and how they change. And I got to even say, just broadly speaking, we don't think a lot about apps anymore, even though they're still fundamental to how we use our smartphones every day, right? But there's a bit of a change in focus, I think, for a lot of consumers around the experience of using smartphones and devices more broadly. We're sort of seeing it from a far more, interactive, voice-based type approach to maybe some of the traditional ways that we've thought about apps. And I'm interested, from a very broad point of view, we can drill into some specifics, but I'm interested in your take on some of these big trends, because surely as you've come into the role, you start thinking about, well, what's the next 20 years going to look like?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you're right. People are allowing their phone to interact a lot with their apps on their devices. So I think there's going to be some evolution where it's really important to have a trusted source. That right now, if you were to ask AI or ChatGPT like anything about nutrition, you would get so much information. And some of it would be right, some of it would be right for you, and some of it would just be stuff that you would not want to put any of your, physical well-being entrusted into, because it's really built on information, some of it good, some of it bad.
Yeah.
And so what I think our app does, and any app that specializes in a certain thing, is it gives you a narrower lens to have that information curated for you. And it could be curated to what your needs are: gaining weight, losing weight, health and wellness, longevity, or it could be just taking out some of the misinformation. And we are, really bound legally and ethically to provide information that is the best for our consumers. It's not, we don't tell you you're going to lose 30 pounds. That's really a result of some of the advice that we give and some of the ways we allow you to track, but we're not going to make, overpromise. And I do think that in the short term, there will be too much information for consumers to be able to sift through, and they'll rely on apps. And then over time, apps like MyFitnessPal or any of the apps you really love to use will be fully integrated with those experiences that you like the ChatGPT. We have voice logging. We have where you can use your camera to take pictures of your food. So we will start to it will blur the lines, but I think the thing that stands behind an app like MyFitnessPal is that you can trust it, and that the advice or that the information behind it is scientifically based. We have an entire team of nutrition experts and doctors who are telling us, what's right and what's wrong in nutrition.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounds like a trust story. I'm interested in your take on the mindset of your customers and how that's changing, or, trust is if you like the foundation or the starting point, but how is it evolving? What are they thinking about within the community? And the reason I ask that, of course, is just to give you a bit of a shout out. I saw one of the reviews, you've got like 4.7 out of 5, rating from nearly 140,000 reviews. So that's a lot of people saying nice things about you. It's also a responsibility to look after the hearts and minds of these people.
That's right. Well, and that is the core of what we do today. That really does differentiate us from apps or websites or even just ChatGPT, who can, provide you a lot of information, but you can also tell it to tell you something. So we don't get heavily influenced by where the market is headed. But you're right, we do care about what our consumers do, and we have over 20 people running, our customer support, and they're behind the scenes. They are everywhere from responding to your comments on Facebook, Reddit. They'll, answer your messages if you send us a message personally. And we're always collecting their stories. The consumer stories are what fuels MyFitnessPal. A lot of people hear about it from a friend. So a lot of those reviews are on the App Store, of course, but a lot of them are, hey, have you tried this? This has really worked for me. And those aren't necessarily recorded anywhere. They're really just the stories that friends tell friends or family tells family. And that hasn't changed. And I think that'll become even more important when there's just so many choices and so many ways to get the same information. People will just say, how do you get it? How do you stay so focused on your health? Because people, will have too many choices to go forward.
Tell me about your experience. How do you represent that customer voice and the mindset and I imagine you've probably got all sorts of different persona across the spectrum of people who use it. And you need to be taking in all of that information, of course, and then reflecting that back into the business and the senior leadership. How do you go about making sure you've got your finger on the pulse?
Well, I mean, what we do is we listen to our customers. They could be in those reviews, and if we get a not so nice one, we're also on top of those, right? If anything comes up on Reddit or any of those things, we're always responding and using that information. Actually, my team was able to go through Reddit threads and actually take all those comments, load them into ChatGPT, and say, what's going on with our customers? So that way we wouldn't have to read so many comments, because we have so many mentions on Reddit and other threads like that. And it was able to help us not only, answer questions that our customers have, add more FAQs to the site, but also come up with messaging that, would really resonate with them. We also do a ton of consumer studies. We are trying to understand how people use devices, how people use medications, how people use like any kind of new fitness wearables and things like that, and what they really want and who they trust and how they get their information. So like you said, we did a study where we asked people, how do you get information about fitness and nutrition? And, some very high percentage of them said TikTok. And so we did a study and we looked at, we basically loaded all these TikTok videos into ChatGPT, and we asked it, what percent of this is true? And it was something like 2% of what TikTok was saying was, true, good nutritional advice. And the rest was, probably clickbait, if nothing else. And so, we're constantly listening, not only to what customers are saying, but kind of going where they are so that we can help them find the right information and discount. We have, kind of myth busting that we do every year to make sure people aren't following any trends that don't make a ton of sense.
What's interesting about that is you're a scale story. So 250 million users, 120 countries. You are dealing with a volume of data there, which of course means you've got to start looking at AI engines to, get some clarity across large data sets. That makes a lot of sense to me. How do you get the golden thread through all of that while at the same time being able to segment messages down into particular groups across that, incredible spread of humans?
Yeah. I mean, we have the benefit of these amazing, media platforms that have really kind of figured out how to target down to some of the most detailed needs. We use AI in those platforms, but also we can generate so much content. We have so many influencers and so many people who want to talk about our product organically, and as well as, through paid relationships, that we're able to reach a lot of people, and the algorithms have sort of perfected themselves. So if I care about maybe losing a few pounds after a baby, or I'm getting ready for my wedding, or it's swimsuit season, or it's like new year, new me, and I want to like really give it a try this year, or if it's anything, there's even a focus on protein right now. People are really trying to see the merits of using, fueling their bodies instead of starving their bodies over the years. And instead of having to say, okay, let's, manually segment this and pull a list or something, we really know that the algorithms will find people because they are searching other information, and that's where they are.
What have you found is different about different cultures and people groups and the way that they consume information, or maybe their food choices? And as you're speaking, one of the things that I've been thinking about is obviously the food preferences in the US are much different to many other countries around the world, right? So there's all sorts of mindsets that drive the way that we think and behave. And I'm curious in, some of the differences you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, what's really cool about having a database like ours, it is built by all of our consumers. So if you have your first Vegemite burger, I don't know if that's a thing, but
it's really not. Vegemite toast.
Okay.
Vegemite toast is all I'll give you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if you're having your first Vegemite toast, that first person who loaded up Vegemite toast into our database is the person who, has now provided that for everyone else to use. And every day there's someone going to a new culture or a new fusion, and they're able to load that information in. And we have a barcode scanner. So if it's a packaged food in any country, anywhere, we can add that into our database as well. So what we're sort of crowdsourced in that way, that people, there's no like one database of all the foods in the world, but our consumers, because they represent so many people, so many cultures, we're able to pick up on all those different foods. And then you can pretty much go anywhere and find it in MyFitnessPal.
Okay, so that's a really important insight, which means that you're trusting the expertise of the users within the community and curating that rather than, if you like, a centralized model. How do you manage that over time?
It's a great question because we trust but verify. So we
Right?
have a problem if everyone puts in the food over and over with slightly different, calories or fats or whatever. So there's definitely oversight. And guess what? We're using AI to improve our database every day. And
Yeah.
before AI, it was probably just regular machine learning. But we really we want to reduce the complexity. So if you go in there and type banana, we don't want you to have to choose through 30 bananas. We want, there's just sort of one average standard banana out there.
Yeah.
Same thing with a lot of different foods. So we do allow people to add it, but we also make it really easy to find existing foods. So we, probably add less and less food every day than we did at the beginning. But we're also in the back end cleaning up any kind of misinformation or any, maybe
Yeah.
someone spelled something wrong. We're cleaning that up on the back end with AI and machine learning.
Here at the CMO Show, we're celebrating 10 years of podcasting. We are the OG of CMO podcasts, and I'm so glad that you're with us in this community. We'd love you to subscribe to us, of course, in Apple Podcasts, in Spotify. You can find us on LinkedIn. We'd also want to encourage you, if there's a marketer or a CMO in your network that needs to hear one of our episodes, share it. Let them know, because that's how we can grow and how we can connect with more people and make every episode even better. Thanks for being, again, part of this community. I'll speak to you soon. One of the harsh realities of dealing with the wide, consumer audience is that, look, I'm just going to put my little pinky toe in the conspiracy theory water to make a point, which is that there are some people who have some pretty wild ideas out there. And one of those things is I'm going to use cereal as an example. I've lived in America. There is one, if not more, cereal aisles, right? You've got too much choice for a particular category of food, in my opinion, right? And actually, certain types of foods can be had in moderation, not, to excess. But there are very powerful marketing and lobby groups that try to steer people in a particular way. And I'm picking on that, for example, because in my own experience, I've had a lot of learning in this space, and I err on protein, for example, in the morning as opposed to a cereal which doesn't last for very long. How do you think about some of these very big kind of spiky issues, knowing that also that from a pure health point of view, maybe a scientific point of view, it's really, really important we get this stuff right?
It is. And I think what we're doing now and we're evolving our product is to take feedback. So I actually did this sort of experiment with myself where I ate way too many bagels for breakfast. So they're quick, they're easy, they're filling, right? And then I kind of said, okay, maybe I should try, some avocado toast, which is, what we typically eat here, and maybe some eggs on it. And let me just see, like, at what point in the day do I get hungry? Instead of, maybe 10:30 a.m., right after I've basically eaten my breakfast and digested it, and my blood sugar has spiked and gone back down. What does that feel like if I just ate like a real hearty breakfast? And the feedback that I told myself was, oh, I actually can make it all the way to lunch. So what we're doing is we're incorporating that sort of feedback mechanism into MyFitnessPal that would allow you to say, how do you feel? How's your energy today? And it would allow you to reflect back on, oh, okay, you had, X meals yesterday, keep it up. Or, oh, you're feeling a little tired, maybe add some protein. So we're experimenting with ways to kind of coach and use that internal feedback. We can also, connect different devices like we were talking about earlier, like your Apple Watch. How did you sleep? It tells you how many hours you slept and the different types of sleep you've been in. So if you kind of connect all these different pieces of your wellness, MyFitnessPal and truly food, not really MyFitnessPal, but food is the central. It's really hard to, exercise off weight or exercise off pain or gastrointestinal issues. You really need to treat that with food. And we've had, actually someone reached out to me not too long ago. They had hit, I think it was 5,000 days on MyFitnessPal. I don't even know how many years that is. And he said he got started using it when he had a part of his lower intestine removed, and he was getting a lot of irritability in his stomach. And he used it to track, how do I feel after I eat this versus this. And so he couldn't remember what he ate each day. So he put it in MyFitnessPal, and now 5,000 days later, he's still doing it. So that's the kind of cool thing, is that, we're using that feedback mechanism to train your body, rather than trying to like use any sort of theories. Like it's really very personal, and everybody's body can kind of react differently to different mixes of foods.
So there's a really strong customer or user empowerment theme that I'm picking up there. Can you give us a quick overview of your marketing strategy? What are you taking to market?
Well, our biggest, marketing strategy right now is really through a large uh, ecosystem of influencers through social media. We do find, like I mentioned earlier, that people are finding about information about nutrition through social media. So we want to be there, and that's where they're looking, and that's where they're spending a lot of time. So we're expanding through all those channels. And we're constantly testing and learning. So if you see one ad today and a different ad tomorrow, you're likely part of a different test strategy. We're trying to build organic presence. We also really, really care about influencing influential people. So nutritionists, doctors, other people that you trust for your information. We really work on demonstrating our knowledge to people who also share knowledge. A lot of people get information about health from their doctors, and I would say a lot of doctors recommend MyFitnessPal because it's something, again, that we've been around for so long. So we're talking to them. And then finally, we also really want to find pools of buyers. There's many, many companies that reach out to us every day, and sorting through the different opportunities. There's lots of really, really engaged customers using different apps for their wellness that we can tap into. And so there's been a lot of push on the partnership side as well.
And what about above the line advertising? Are you on buses and billboards and those sorts of things, or is that not as big a drive from a brand awareness point of view?
Usually we kind of reserve that for, some of our bigger campaigns. We have a really exciting campaign coming out in the new year that will feature, probably more of that out of home and brand advertising. It's what we're finding is that we can reach a unique population, going to YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, and we're maybe at a lower cost and frankly a commitment than what the television stations require.
Yeah.
And so, I have a lot of experience using billboards and things like that, especially in my Grubhub days, because that is like such a moment where you're like, I'm hungry right now and I'm on the subway going home. I think for fitness, like you're probably more likely to be kind of in your couch or on your phone. So I think you kind of have to be where consumers are, and so we may not always be on billboards as a result.
That's a great insight. Well, tell me then how you see the influencer market playing out, particularly as we see TikTok being kind of a bit up and down, really, quite frankly.
Yes. I would say if I had to put a percentage, we do spend more on the smaller influencers. And part of the reason is going back to what we talked about. We have to serve so many needs. We have moms with young kids, mom with older kids planning their meals, and they're, even though they're maybe less picky, there's more thought that has to go into picking a family meal over maybe some chicken nuggets for the kids and a nice dinner for mom and dad. We also talk to kids, who are maybe just like learning for the very first time how to use nutrition and how to cook. Maybe they didn't learn that growing up in school. We also want to, help different cultures, like you mentioned, and share with them the ways that we can incorporate fitness and health into their lives. So we find that by having small influencers, you get more of them, and you can tell a bigger story and connect with more consumers that way.
Just as we start to wrap up, I'm interested, how would you describe the lessons that you've learned as a CMO? Just imagine you're at a barbecue with some friends and they say, what are you learning at your job? What are those sort of top level insights, the things that really fascinate you about your work, and maybe how this role is different to others in the past?
Yeah, it's very cool. It's really been a challenge and a really fun one. I think that I stepped into this role right around the time a lot of AI things were happening. And so one of the things that I've always found myself is a super curious person. I actually have built apps, and I've tried the TikTok video maker and made weird videos that I would never show anyone, but just knowing, like just having this like curiosity. And so I've really found that being adaptable in this time is really, really helpful to embrace, but also to show your team like, hey, I'm willing to embrace this. Like if someone from my team says, oh, I wrote this all using ChatGPT, I say, oh, that's great. I'm glad you saved your time. And we write like, it just hurries us up and gets us past some of the harder things in the day. I also know that as a leader, I have to set very clear expectations. And because there's so much going on, if I tell them one day this and one day that, and they're never going to know what I'm talking about. So just being really clear about my objectives, my priorities. It's hard to stay on task, but that is important to people. And then making a tough call. If there's a lot of great ideas in the room or some really bad ideas, sometimes you just have to use what you know and use some of the intuition you have to say, we're just not doing that. And sometimes that means you have incomplete information. And sometimes that means you have just way too much information to sift through. And you just have to make a call and move on. And I think those are the things I've learned as the leader, is that I have to do that now. That isn't being done for me. No one's telling me what to do. And as a result, I kind of have to own that setting of priorities and clearing everybody's table and telling them what is important to me.
Are there influences from a leadership point of view that you look to, people that have been either mentors or that you look to as inspirational sources of your own at that CMO leadership level?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have two types of influencers in my life: people I want to be like and people I never, ever, 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 ever want to be anything like. And so I kind of hold those, like the devil and the angel, on my shoulder of, so, I mean, and I won't name any names, but, someone who doesn't tell you how you're doing or doesn't give you the full truth, that's a devil. I am all about transparency. And I've had a lot of leaders who make me feel sad maybe the day they tell me how they might have felt, but really glad in the long run that they did. And then on the other hand, I know that leaders can be empathetic and that they can share with you, some vulnerabilities, but also be strong when you need them. And so I try to do a little of that. I'm a human, especially with all this working from home. You saw the dogs and the kids and you hear all these stories, and it's hard to resist, just really getting to know people, even though that's a very remote world, just making sure you're there for them and hearing them out and giving them the chance to be their very best.
Well, Marnie, thank you for being my guest on the CMO Show. All the best in your role there at MyFitnessPal, and stay in touch. We'll speak to you soon.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me.
Look, it was quite fun to be able to say there's an app for that, because I haven't said that in a long time. And it was a conversation that reminded me about the mindset we have in marketing. It used to be that apps were the solution. Of course, now we look at AI integrated with apps, and then how we tell a story based on this interaction between the two, or perhaps in your case, it's online services and products and the way that we think about our digital strategy and transformation. This is an example of an organization that still has customers very much at the core of who they are and what they do. And I hope that you took out some lessons. A really great marketing team by the sound of it, who are thinking about constantly using data to improve. So that's it for this episode of the CMO Show. Thanks once again for joining me and the team. We are a podcast produced by Impact Institute in partnership with Adobe. We are celebrating our 10-year anniversary. So thanks for being with us on this journey. We'll look forward to seeing you soon. The CMO Show is produced by Impact Institute in partnership with Adobe. Impact Institute is a professional services firm for purpose-led organisations. Our unique blend of impact consulting, brand storytelling and event services help our clients create meaningful change. This episode of the CMO Show was brought to you by your host, Mark Jones, that's me, and producers Kate Zadell and Kirsten Babels. Our audio engineers are Ed Chang and Daniel Marr. And a quick shout out to Adobe Experience Cloud, which gives digital businesses everything they need to design and deliver great customer experiences. Visit business.adobe.com to learn how Adobe can help transform your business.